So, what does a conflict actually look like from the ground? I mean, away from all the headlines and statistics. Today, we're diving into a document that shares powerful, first-hand accounts from individuals in Gaza. We're going to break down the major themes that come directly from their own words.
Right from the start, the document we're explaining hits you with this recurring line from journalist Bizan Ada. She often starts her video reports with just three simple, incredibly powerful words: "I'm still alive." It's a statement that, right away, grounds you in the raw, personal reality of the stories we're about to get into.
Now, it's really important to be clear about this. Everything we're going to talk about today comes directly from this one investigation. Our goal here isn't to cover the wider conflict, but to explain what's inside this specific document, which is a collection of personal, named testimonies.
Okay, so one of the most powerful themes that you see again and again in these accounts is this constant, relentless feeling of displacement. Story after story is about being forced to leave home, not just once, but over and over and over again.
When you look at these accounts all together, you can't help but see this clear pattern. People fled their homes for what they hoped were safe places, like a hospital or a UN school, only to be told they had to move again. The testimonies from Raida, Hassam, Nisreen, and so many others, they paint this picture of a cascading crisis, where there was really no safe place to land.
And within these massive movements of people are these deeply personal, heartbreaking moments. Take Nisreen Abbas's testimony. She talks about the exact moment she was separated from her husband in the absolute chaos of trying to find shelter. It's a single, awful detail that really brings the huge scale of displacement down to a very human level.
The document also points to some incredibly complex and almost surreal situations people found themselves in. For instance, Raida and Hassam's brother Jamal was apparently tasked by soldiers to deliver an evacuation order to the very people sheltering in the same hospital as him. It's an account that just shows how the lines between civilian, messenger, and victim could become so blurred.
But for some, the journey didn't just end in another temporary shelter. The next major theme that runs through this document is detention. Several of the testimonies shift from the experience of fleeing to the experience of being imprisoned and interrogated.
And inside these detention accounts, there's a really serious allegation that comes up. The source relays the testimonies of Muhannad al-Jamal and Abu Amer, and both of them state that they were used by soldiers as human shields.
So it's important we're clear on how this term is being used here. The document we're explaining makes a point to clarify that human shield is the specific phrase coming from the testimonies themselves. It's the language they use to describe what they allege happened to them.
Let's look at two specific detention accounts side by side. On one hand, you have Hadil Dadu, who describes being held for 54 days and says she was often the only woman among male prisoners. On the other, there's Fadi Bakr. He recounts 45 days in a different center and reports brutal treatment. Now, while their individual stories are unique, they're presented together in the source to show this shared experience of long-term detention.
Okay, so finally, the document turns its focus to a really unique group of people, the journalists and professionals who weren't just living through these events, but were also trying to document them for the rest of the world.
One of the central figures highlighted here is the photojournalist Motaz Hilal Azaiza. He used his social media to provide this constant, direct stream of documentation, giving the world an unfiltered view from his perspective inside Gaza.
But this act of bearing witness, well, it came at an absolutely immense personal cost. According to his account, this number, 15, that's how many of his family members he lost in an airstrike right after the war started.
And it goes beyond just the physical loss. The source makes sure to note the deep psychological toll he's described. He's talked openly about having flashbacks, feeling survivor's guilt, and the sense of hopelessness. It really shines a light on the hidden costs for those who document these events. And his wasn't an isolated case. The document also features Bisan Auda, the filmmaker we heard from at the very beginning, and Dr. Sarah Al-Saka, who's described as Gaza's first female surgeon. Each of them was using their professional skills to document a different part of the crisis, from the lack of basic food and shelter to the total collapse of the medical system.
So, after going through all these stories of displacement, of detention, of documentation, what does it all add up to? What's the point of putting all these accounts together in one place?
While the core purpose of this document really seems to be about creating a mosaic of individual human experiences, it's a deliberate choice to step away from things like military strategy or geopolitics. Instead, it offers a collection of personal stories, a chorus of voices from the ground. And in the end, this document leaves us with a question. It doesn't really give us an answer, but it forces us to think about it. When official reports and big statistics are dominating the news, what is the true role and what is the real power of a single human testimony? Something to consider. Thanks for joining us for this explainer.